Facebook, and then swing over on our YouTube channel there and go live on our Facebook page as well. We want to welcome these two individuals in the studio with us. Familiar, obviously, with Adam Johnson, CEO of Safe Harbor Credit Union.
Good morning.
How you doing today?
Good. You say Jelly Roll's going to run a marathon?
Yes.
I don't feel very good about myself if that guy can run a marathon and I can't.
I think he'll do it. He's trying to drop weight, and part of it is I'll be frank. He's like I'm just tired of it. Well, the two things that come to mind. One with him is that he's got all this pressure out there of the world and to be more in shape and stuff like that. He showed a photo of himself a while back sitting in his private plane, and it's tough for him to fit in his plane. I mean, it's crazy. So he's like, hey, I'm gonna drop some weight and get out there and run. But the other thing that we talked about this morning with him was he only wears one pair of socks once. He only wears socks one pair. I don't know how that,
because they get so nasty. You just got to throw them away.
I have no idea. I would assume after one day his socks are fairly white still and clean and everything. But yeah, he just has this thing about it. But it's interesting. It is. I'll tell you this. It's 9:27 here on a Thursday morning, and Adam Johnson here this morning, and as well somebody that we haven't had you on the air yet, have we? Had you? Brian is in the studio. Brian Pyrah, Brian from the Commercial Lending Division of Safe Harbor Credit Union. I'm going to be talking with both of you about that. Plus, scholarship recipient. I saw on your Facebook page just the other day, recipient for a very special scholarship, and I'm going to have you build the foundation for that for us over the next few minutes. And also saw that there is a potential merger happening there with the, is it the Mason County Teachers Credit Union?
Mason County School Employees Credit Union.
Okay, there you go. And so that is going to be where you're going to house them for just a little bit there, and we'll chat about that too coming up in the next few minutes. Brian, we're going to put you on the hot seat this morning right away, and I guess my first question to you is, there's entrepreneurs out there, there's individuals that are looking to start their own business. We see, shops open on South James Street. We are hearing, businesses opening in the Scottville area and everywhere in between.
Right.
Do we still have a positive outlook when it comes to small business and growth here in the area? Are you seeing those conversations happening?
Yes, for sure. Excuse me. Interest rates have maybe slowed things down just a little bit on the commercial side, but we found for the most part that we've seen some growth, and it continues to be that way. So I'm hoping that it continues. We're trying to continue to look for any opportunities we can to help some of the local entrepreneurs or established business owners, either with some of their current needs or anything that they might need in the future.
When it comes to commercial lending, if you had to list like the top 3 or 4 reasons why or that they're taking out loans, they're coming to you for those conversations. Initially I'm thinking, okay, maybe for the commercial property and such,
Sure.
but maybe it's a little bit different. What are those conversations like?
A lot of it depends on the prospective borrower, but we do a lot of commercial lending on real estate. We also offer commercial term loans for equipment purchases. We do revolving lines of credit. It's a case-by-case basis. We try to tailor the products that we have to fit their needs. And so part of it also is just consulting with them. We sit down for a half an hour. We discuss what their ideas are, what their plan is. They can usually give us some idea of where they're headed, and we can maybe help them reach their goal that way.
Do you see that most business owners or future business owners, entrepreneurs, those that want to, take that step, as an example, we were just talking with a new advertiser the other day, and it was a fact of it was a husband and wife team. Husband has been working on the business for a while. The wife has finally decided that, hey, you know what, we've got enough business coming in that I'm going to move from that job into full time with the husband and wife.
Sure.
So the question, I guess, that I have is, do you see that many people that sit down with you are prepared, or do you think that when they sit down with you, it's more of an eye-opening experience? Does that make sense a little bit?
It does, and I would say that we have both. There's a wide spectrum of entrepreneurs and business owners. Some of them are very well versed in every little aspect of their business. Others are just getting into it or starting to learn it. And in both cases, I can offer some help, either with the borrower who may have a pretty good grasp of their stuff, but just maybe they don't know what they need as far as future financing or things like that. And then the ones that come in and just aren't really sure where to turn next, we have a pretty strong network of professionals in Ludington and Manistee and the surrounding area that we are very happy to refer to people. Mm-hmm. So if they need something like an attorney or a CPA, we can definitely help them find the person that would be appropriate for them to work with.
Let's talk about, and if you're just joining us, we're talking with the team from Safe Harbor Credit Union. Adam Johnson here in the studio, Brian Pyrah. Brian, in the commercial lending side of things, do people come through your door expecting more but receive less? And I say this only from not a qualification standpoint, mm-hmm. but from a when you're talking to them over that half an hour's time and really diving into it, mm-hmm. that they realize maybe we should take out less than more. Does that sort of make sense a little bit?
Yes, yeah, and that's one of the parts that we try to counsel people on. Obviously, a successful business can run with some debt. In fact, most successful businesses do have some debt, if nothing else, just for their working capital. But there are some times where we'll talk to people, and yeah, they might realize halfway through the conversation that they're going about it the wrong way, or that they need to change things, or in some very rare cases, they might just decide, this is too much for me. I'm going to wait a year and maybe see how things go. So mm-hmm. It is a case-by-case basis, but yeah, we do see that.
And my next question, you'd hinted on this just a moment ago about the commercial loan rates and mm-hmm. such that are out there. You know, it's either some people think it's just black and white, right? Like, okay, I'm going to move forward with this. Let's have the conversation, or wait and see what happens in the future.
Sure.
Where do you think people are landing right now? Is it better to kind of rethink a little bit? Not that I'm discouraging them from coming in and seeing you. I don't want that to be the case.
Sure.
But in the history of this country and the world, we know that rates fluctuate all the time, right?
Sure.
What is the environment like?
Right now, the environment seems to be fairly stable. It's not doing a lot of fluctuation like it was over the past few years. And yes, one of the things that we look at specifically for, say, like a term loan or something is we can do different lengths of loans for people. And in some cases, it's good to do a shorter length of time because they may get back to the table with us quicker to negotiate a renewal,
okay.
At which point we take rates from the current market at that time. So with some people, I do recommend, instead of, say, moving out to a 5-year term, maybe we just do a 3-year, see where the interest rate is at that time, mm-hmm. and that could work to their benefit.
And in most cases, does it work for their benefit when you look at things like that?
Most of the time, yes.
Okay.
Obviously, we can't control exactly what the rates are going to
mm-hmm.
do, but in a lot of cases, we have a strong enough handle on it where we have an idea of which direction it's going, and so we're very transparent with the fact that we can't guarantee any of those things. However, to consult with them and to explain to them what they might be able to do to set themselves up better for financial success 2, 3, 4 years later down the road, that's an important part of that conversation.
All right. We ask a lot, and we got the kiddos saying hi to Hudson there, and Hudson's doing pretty good. Brian, let's, and I know I'm peppering you with questions, and you're doing fantastic.
Keep them coming. That's great. Sure.
I hope that's okay.
No problem.
Let's talk about when it comes to somebody thinking about their home and taking out a loan and going that direction mm-hmm. versus taking out a loan, going through the commercial lending side of it. What are some of the big differences that they might not realize between the two?
One of the biggest differences really comes into play when you talk about commercial mortgages. Typically on a standard residential mortgage, you can have an amortization that goes out to 30 years. There's no set terms or anything like that. You get a fixed rate. With commercial mortgages, things are a little bit different. Typically, they only go for a 20-year amortization, and they typically have a balloon or a term on them of either 3 or 5 years. That's the biggest difference, and one that that people sometimes get surprised with, because the payment is a little bit larger if you do over 20 as opposed to 30. And some of them have already done the math in their heads or, on paper and have thought, okay, 30 years sounds good. So we have to back them up a little bit and just explain how that part works.
Okay, that makes sense. Is it, and ultimately, it's better to pay off that commercial loan, or are you telling, when you have these conversations, focus on building your revenue, but just eating at that over time? What's the approach when it comes to that?
There's several different ways to do it based on the loan type. But in a lot of cases, their CPAs will also guide them in that respect as far as whether you should try to pay something off or leave it out there. Things like depreciation come into play with things like that. So yeah, it really is a case-by-case basis. Unfortunately, it's not a really good answer, but that's that's where that is. So
it's a good point there. Types of commercial loans, should we be talking a little bit about that?
Sure.
When somebody walks through the door, to help them be a little bit more educated on it.
Sure. Yep. So the three main types of commercial loans that we offer would be commercial mortgages, obviously, so you can buy your property. We do term notes for equipment, so you want to purchase some equipment, we can take a look at that for you. And then lines of credit, whether they're revolving or non-revolving. Most of them are revolving lines, and they just help the business with working capital needs, maybe some slow times between pay periods, things like that. And those are the three main ones, but each of those has multiple variations, and those all depend on what the situation is and what type of business they're trying to run. And we try to guide them into whichever one fits them best that'll be most beneficial to them.
Okay. And my final question in regards to that, is there, let's say, 3 to 5 items that before they walk in the door, not necessarily document-wise, but more of, let's have your ducks in a row in these areas,
Sure.
so that it makes it easier for them to secure that?
Sure. Depending on the size of the business, one of the things that I'll recommend to people right off the bat is that they consult with an attorney and or a CPA, especially if they're just getting started setting up an LLC, doing those types of things. So those would be two of the main things I think that we would look at.
Okay. All right. And anything else that comes to mind as well?
Boy, no, I can't remember.
I think
now.
one
Sure
thing
that-
we'd say is,
Okay.
we collect tax returns.
Yes.
And that can always be to help them qualify, to make sure that they can show on paper that they can cash flow the new loan payment. But obviously, a lot of the business owners don't want to do too well on their tax returns and then have to pay taxes. So that can be a struggle sometimes. You got to find that sweet spot. Hopefully those tax returns come back with some profitable numbers, but hopefully maybe the business owner doesn't want to be too profitable,
Yeah.
or they've got to pay too much taxes back. So that can be a catch-22 sometimes when we get those tax returns.
Absolutely.
And I should probably mention also business plans are a very very important part of that as well. And some people come in and they've got one set up in a binder and it's ready to go because their CPA helped them with it. Others might just be a short snippet of something that they've just written down.
Notes
As long
on a
as-
napkin, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as long as we can see that they've put some time and effort into figuring out what those numbers would be, that's the number one hurdle. And once we get them to that point where they're starting to look at that, then that makes a lot more sense for them, and it makes it easier for us to determine what they need.
All right. Adam, let's, as we transition a little bit, I have a couple questions. So let's bring that microphone over close to you. When we talk about these loans, do you feel like Safe Harbor is, really investing in the community by not necessarily handing out a ton of money, but in the sense investing in these businesses and these startup businesses, and as Brian had mentioned, these businesses that might be struggling a little bit to cover payroll or wants to upgrade equipment? Do you see that the effort is there?
Definitely. That's one reason we brought Brian on board about 2.5 years ago, because that was an area where we felt like we weren't really serving our members. So we had to bring somebody on board with some experience, and it was great bringing Brian on board. He's got many years of commercial underwriting experience and commercial lending experience. So having somebody on the team like that can serve our business members has been huge.
Okay. Is there, I don't know if you have one of these stories, but Brian, I'm sure you have one. And we can't really talk about the specific business, but there has to be, I like aha moments. You know what I'm talking about? The moment where you were able to lend, you were able to see the success there. Can you give us one, you've been there for 2.5 years now. There has to be one that's just like, this is the great moment. Is there something that stands out for you in particular?
I don't have any specific ones I can think of at the moment, but I have had quite a few interactions with folks where they were just actually surprised by the ease at which we could do some of these processes.
Okay.
In some cases, it just went faster than what they were expecting, or we found ways to streamline it, or in some cases, they just had some ideas in their head that they thought that might come into play, and we did a pretty good job of just kind of smoothing it over and making sure they understand. You don't have to worry about this or this. We'll take care of this, and we try to make it as easy as possible. And some of the people that come in are a little intimidated by the fact that they're looking for a business loan, and I think once they've met with us and our staff, they realize that we're just we're members of this community just like they are, and we're just there to try to help them.
Yeah, looking out for them. Adam, same sort of question. Is there that moment where you realized, and you maybe drive by the business again? We don't want to share that information, but that where Safe Harbor was able to step up and help.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the cool thing about living in this community and working in this community is you do get to drive by and you see those businesses grow over the years. I can definitely think of one commercial member that they did a good job. They started out really small and said, I want to do this, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and they've kind of started doing other businesses along with that, and
okay.
it's great. And they communicated with somebody, and that person called me up and said, hey Adam, I just want you to know that I talked to so and he's so grateful for what Safe Harbor's done to help his business. So that means a lot when people go out of their way to give you a phone call to let you know that they're so thankful that they've kind of made their dreams come true a little bit.
For sure, and we see that, and obviously investing in the community as a local credit union, that is important. Let's talk about as we transition here over the next few minutes, a scholarship that you give out from Safe Harbor Credit Union, the Walt Leinberger scholarship there. Adam, take us through that and the recipient and what the scholarship is all about, and Walt as well.
This was the first year we were able to offer that scholarship, and Ashley McPike was the winner of that $2,000 scholarship. And it was a scholarship that we wanted to create. Walt's still alive. He's still around the community, but he just retired this fall from the Mason County School Employees Credit Union. He was a longtime math teacher at Langton High School. I'm not sure how many years ago he retired, but he was at the school district, I believe, over 30 years. And in that time, he was also the manager of the credit union. So we just wanted to honor him, the Walt Leinberger Legacy Scholarship. So it's not a memorial. He's still kicking. He's still alive. He was my high school math teacher. I'm surprised he didn't retire after
he went through.
Nice. But he's got a great sense of humor. So we wanted to do a scholarship that kind of maybe recognized those students that excelled at math. We did put science on there. But Ashley McPike, I think she's going to Michigan. She wants to be an engineer. She mentioned something about someday she'd like to maybe work for NASA, be an astronaut. So she was also a good athlete, a well-rounded student. So we thought she was a very well-deserving recipient, and it was a good way to recognize Mr. Leinberger.
Absolutely. And we're going to be talking in a few minutes about the Teachers Credit Union and that potential merger, but also that temporary home at Safe Harbor Credit Union. But when you hand out these scholarships, what are you looking for in these students? What surprises you, even in some of these applications?
And unfortunately, we didn't get our application out there to the students until maybe a couple weeks before the deadline. So we had a short window, but we were pleasantly surprised with how many applications we got via email or in the mail. And just reading. A lot of them had very high GPAs. A lot of them were over 4 point. A lot of them were in AP classes. What else? And then they put together, some of them put together a lengthy story about why this scholarship would assist them. And some of them just very impressive, well-spoken individuals. And that Ashley's kind of her her paper that she wrote kind of, I thought, set her apart a little bit from some of the other, besides her high GPA and everything she did. But the fact that she really wanted to get into engineering was obviously you have to be pretty good at math for that. So we thought she was a well-deserving recipient.
Absolutely, and obviously there's always the stereotype that engineering's male-dominated division, but being able to be wanting to be an astronaut, work for NASA, those are high goals, and
I think if we can assist someone from Ludington that has those lofty goals, it'd be great if we'd see her. Who knows? In 15 years, going up in a rocket or something like that.
Absolutely.
With NASA. So that'd be nice to see a local person do that.
All right, great achievement and accomplishment there. Before we wrap up, the Teachers Credit Union, we'd mentioned that a couple of times. Take us through that. That there's some chatter about that, but it's not a done deal at this point. But it's making its way through. But there is some temporary home there too, right?
As a lot of people know, there's a lot of construction going on at the school. The Mason County School Employees Credit Union is housed in the Ludington Administration Building right there on Tinkham, and there's going to be some construction going on in that building. So the credit union there is in a very small room. So it's going to be difficult for them to conduct business there as the construction goes on. So like a lot of credit unions do, they're always willing to assist other credit unions so they can help still serve the members. So I think it's going to be June 17th is going to be the first day when that credit union, Mason County School Employees Credit Union, is going to be opened at Safe Harbor. It's going to be in one of our little conference rooms right off the lobby, so it's going to be very convenient, easy to find for their members to come in. I believe their hours are still going to be the same what they are right now, which is, I think, close to around 3 to 5:30 it might be their hours.
Okay.
So that's when we'll have the hours open at our credit union for those members coming in. And if we do, that merger is approved, it will hopefully be a nice transition for a lot of their members that'll have their accounts at the school credit union, and we'll try to move them over to the Safe Harbor accounts.
And it brings us back to, I would assume, and maybe I can assume this, is that with the multi-branch, you have a term for this,
shared branching network.
Okay, that both of you were part of this network that makes it easier potentially, or no?
I don't believe they're part of that network.
Okay.
But if that merger does happen, it'll just make it hopefully so much easier for their members to come on board, work with us, and then they'll have more branches around the country that they can do their banking at. We might have some retired teachers that may go to Florida, Arizona. They'll hopefully be able to find some credit union branches down there that can serve their needs.
All right, and that's making its way through the federal government right now.
Correct.
Any sort of timeline? Obviously, when it's going through the federal government, there's its own timeline.
Phone call I received, I think it was last week, said they're working on it, and hopefully they'd have something to us in writing by the end of the month.
Okay.
If not, end of May, early June.
Fantastic. All right, looking forward to that. Brian, we'll have one more question for you. If somebody wants to reach out to you, if we want them to, if they're interested in talking about commercial lending, take us through that process. Do they set up an appointment? Can they walk through the door? What's that like?
It really is more member preference. As long as I'm in the office, if they happen to stop in and need to speak with someone, I'm always available to come down and speak with them if they have any questions, or to sit down and kind of guide them in the right direction. Typically, the best way to reach me would be to just give us a phone call, set up a time, and I can make sure that I can spend the time to do whatever it is that they require. So,
and sometimes it's very difficult for business owners, like as you know, to leave the office to go meet with somebody. So
Right.
Brian does a good job of meeting you where it's convenient for
I
you.
spend some time on the road. Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate both of you coming in, chatting with us about commercial lending, about the scholarship, and about it's not a memorial scholarship. He's probably like, hey, don't talk to me, don't talk about me like that. But it's nice to be able to see that. And I would assume that maybe this is a scholarship. Is it a one-time scholarship potentially, or is it?
We're gonna offer it every year.
Okay, great,
Yes.
great. Looking forward to that. All right, Brian and Adam, thanks for coming in this morning. We
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Chris.
Yep, thank you.
You got it. 9:50 now on 102.7